So you're currently looking for a brand new TV show, but you aren't really sure where to start. Well, I've put together a list of my top TV shows of 2019, and hopefully one of my recommendations will be top of your watch list for 2020. My first recommendation is a BBC Three comedy drama called Back to Life, which originally was released in April 2019. The show follows Miri Matteson, who comes back to her hometown after spending a decade in prison as a teenager. She was accused of killing her friend and now has to come back home, move back in with her parents and try and navigate normal life, despite having a reputation that precedes her. The next one is my first Netflix recommendation of this video. It is a documentary series called The Great Hack. It stems from the work of journalist Carol Cadwalladr, who uncovered the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal. Cambridge Analytica were a data company that was said to have 5,000 data points on every American voter. The documentary shows the part that it played in the 2016 US presidential election and subsequently the EU referendum here in the UK. I knew I wanted to watch this documentary straight from the trailer. It included the line, "Have you ever received an advert online that made you think that your devices were listening to you?" Now this documentary answers that question, but also goes as far as to speculate that all the opinions that we see online are put there by organisations like Cambridge Analytica instead. So this one definitely didn't come out in 2019, and I'm probably a bit late to the party, but it is The Sopranos. The Sopranos is often hailed as the first show in the golden era of TV. Without Tony Soprano, we wouldn't have characters such as Walter White in Breaking Bad and Don Draper in Mad Men. Interestingly, Matthew Weiner, the creator of Mad Men and Don Draper, worked as a supervising producer on The Sopranos. He gave a copy of the pilot script to David Chase, the writer of The Sopranos, and was hired off the back of it. The show follows Tony Soprano, a New Jersey mob boss, as he tries to juggle his organised crime gang, his family life, and dealing with his panic attacks. There are not many shows that portray a character as having anxiety or panic attacks, let alone someone so influential and confident as Tony Soprano. It's not something that you'd really see in other mob films such as The Irishman or Goodfellas. And it was probably even rarer back in 2007 when the show first aired. Tony goes for regular visits with his therapist, Lorraine Bracco's character, Dr. Melfi, and I think it is those scenes that I enjoyed the most from the show. Their sort of good-evil dynamic is quite addictive. Unsurprisingly, part of last year I was going through something that I'm going to call post-Sopranos grief. So I wanted to find something along the same lines that I could enjoy watching as well. So I googled the cast of the show and saw that Stephen Van Sant, who plays Silvio Dante, was actually in a Netflix original show called Lilyhammer. Van Sant plays the character Frank Tagliano, who, after ratting out his New York boss, enters the witness protection program. He is allowed to choose where he'd like to start his new life, and he picks Lillehammer, a village in Norway that is best known for hosting the 1994 Winter Olympics. This show is really different from The Sopranos, despite having a few of the same actors in it. It doesn't take itself as seriously and actually is really funny sometimes. The one that you're expecting. Now, Fleabag has been spoken about to death, so I'm not really going to add any more to it, other than say Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Queen, and the hot priest really wasn't that hot. The next one on the list is the only one in this video that was recommended to me by my mum. Now, I don't really take on her recommendations usually because I know what she watches, Antiques Roadshow, and she has cried at Country Fire before. However, she was right with The Detectorists. The show follows two metal-detecting hobbyists, Lance and Andy, as they try and fulfil their dream of finding gold in their small English village. The Detectorists was written by Mackenzie Crook and was on BBC4. Last year they were showing it around 11:30 to midnight, which was probably the perfect time slot for it. It's such an easy-to-watch, calming comedy, which has a really family-friendly vibe, just like the sitcoms that we used to watch while growing up, which we don't get too much of now, unless you're watching repeats on Gold HD. This one might be a little controversial because I hate The Big Bang Theory. I mean, comic books, slogan t-shirts, Star Wars, reenactments, it's just a parody of itself. I can't stand it. However, what I do like is Young Sheldon. Young Sheldon is sort of the origin story of The Big Bang Theory's main character, Sheldon Cooper. The show follows him growing up in Texas with his very religious mother, his outgoing siblings, and his beloved Meemaw. The thing I like most about the show is the personalities of all three of the young child actors that play Georgie, Missy, and Sheldon, the three siblings. They're both hilarious, they're all very witty, and they play the characters really well, especially because I can't remember if we've seen Georgie in The Big Bang Theory, but we've definitely met Missy, and we can now see why Sheldon is the way he is. Next is a documentary series on Channel 4, hosted by comedian and actor Kathy Burke, called Kathy Burke's All Women. Kathy meets celebrities and members of the general public to discuss what it means to be a woman today. They discuss pressures on things like body image, motherhood, and career success. Kathy firstly met someone from Love Island. I don't watch Love Island, I've got a brain, but this bit was really interesting. She showed the before and after photos of her plastic surgery. Kathy then discussed with her why exactly she'd had it done and does it make her feel better. I'd recommend this show for everyone, actually. I know it's got women in the title, and for some people it means they definitely won't watch it because of that. However, I think it gives a really good insight into the section of society that you're not in. See what pressures people are facing and some of the topics that women care about at the moment in 2019 and 2020. The first reality TV show that I have for you in this video is Glow Up. It was on BBC Three and was hosted by documentary filmmaker Stacey Dooley. However, it was not about documentaries, but in fact makeup artists, and the search was on to find Britain's next growing makeup artist. I think makeup tutorials must be one of the most watched bits of content on social media now. Teenagers no longer have to battle it out with Miss Sporty Mascara and terrible Dream Matte Mousse, and this programme proves that exactly. They're not just doing a really good cat flick eyeliner, they're creating huge, amazing works of art on themselves, on models and each other. We'll get the two reality shows out of the way together. So the second one is The Circle on Channel 4, and it is the second season. It is a really difficult show to try and explain. However, when you watch it, you will pick it up quickly. It's all about trying to be the most popular that you can. Contestants all anonymously stay in one big apartment block and never meet. The only way they communicate is via a messaging app. That messaging app allows you to put a profile up about yourself, so you can pretend to be someone completely different who you think that they'd find more popular, or stay true to yourself. The aim of the game is to be the most popular at the end and get voted for by the public in order to win £100,000. This year there are a lot more surprises, including famous morning presenter Richard Madeley was on there pretending to be a 24-year-old woman called Judy. One of the guys that got through to the final was pretending to be a single mum, tugging on the heartstrings of the other contestants and making Twitter go wild. There were so many great characters in The Circle this year, and the show's producers really ramped it up with some of their tasks and some of the twists and turns throughout. We also had live episodes every Friday hosted by Emma Willis, and a live final where all of the previous contestants came along to find out who won. Another one from Netflix now, and it is another comedy. It is Ricky Gervais's new show called Afterlife. Ricky Gervais, I know, sort of divides the country into two halves really, like Marmite and Brexit, but this show is really great and I really recommend that you watch it. Afterlife is all about Tony. Tony's played by Ricky Gervais and he has recently lost his wife to cancer. It is all about Tony trying to find meaning in his life again, in his work, his family relationships, and maybe moving on to find someone new. The thing I love about this show and Ricky Gervais is, you know, one minute he can be on a scene where he's calling a small ginger boy the C word, to being in a cemetery having a really poignant chat about grief with a fellow mourner. I think this was one of the most talked about shows Channel 4 put out this year. It's a documentary series called Jade, the reality star who changed Britain. The show is all about well-known Big Brother contestant Jade Goody, who passed away 10 years ago last year. Jade was one of the first reality stars in the UK when reality TV was becoming popular. She went from being a normal girl living a normal life in Bermondsey in London to actually then being one of the most popular people in the UK. This was in the days before social media influencers, so Jade was one of the first people to try and curate her own image for the press. She would sell photo opportunities and stories to journalists in order to curate a self-image, but also to provide money for her family. I was a child when Jade Goody was first famous, so I knew of her and I knew she sort of divided opinion, and there were several people that didn't like her, but I didn't really know why. I'd obviously heard about stories from Big Brother, the scandal around racism, but I didn't really know much about her. The other thing that I knew, obviously, was that she passed away. She had cervical cancer, and the third episode of this documentary series is really emotional to watch. My final show to recommend to you is another Netflix documentary that came out in January 2019. It's called Fyre: The Greatest Party That Never Happened. If you've been living under a rock and don't know what Fyre Festival is, it was meant to be the most luxurious music festival with VIP guests and the best party to ever exist. However, in reality, it was a huge case of fraud. Festival organisers spent hundreds and thousands of pounds on marketing, but nothing actually on the practicalities. The people who bought tickets, 5,000 of them, paid over $1,000 each. They also had VIP experiences, helicopter rides, specific parties that you could get into by paying more. They had wristbands that they asked you to preload with more money, trying to pump more money into this festival that was never going to happen. There are still labourers in the Bahamas that haven't been paid their money today. And when festival goers did turn up, there were sort of paper tents and they were given a cheese sandwich, and that was it. It looked really like Lord of the Flies. So there you have it, my top TV shows of 2019 counted down. Hopefully one of my recommendations will have made it to the top of your watch list for 2020. Let me know in the comments which one you're going to check out first, and if there's a TV show that you like and you think I would do too, put that in the comments as well. Other than that, thank you for watching, consider hitting subscribe, and I'll see you back here next time.